It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. How is everyone doing today? It is a lovely day. We're in December now. December. Just so you know, we are in December.
All I gotta say
I'm over it.
Look at this handsome fellow down below us here. Let's give it up for the new dad. Let's give it up for him there. He's able to make it with us. We're so happy to have him back. There he is. Travis, how are you surviving, brother?
I'm doing great.
As he's drinking the coffee.
I'm doing outstanding. Now, coffee, yeah, I've been drinking coffee like water. I'm not complaining either. It's been great. Doing awesome, man. Really.
Good.
Life is great.
How's your son?
He's doing awesome. Everything. I keep saying awesome, but really, it's been awesome. He's doing good. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's happy. Routine. We're getting into routine pretty good, and yeah, he's just a happy little baby.
That's good. Sean, now you're just becoming an old pro now, right?
I am officially the oldest fucking man on the face of planet Earth. Aside from, I was telling the guys I threw my back out taking a shit. It wasn't even a bad one. It was just like I sat down, I stood up, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Where's this pain? Why
I gotta ask.
Pain?" And
are your balls knee level yet?
They are.
Oh man!
Calling yourself the oldest man.
Stretched
we gotta ask.
Yeah, that's why I always wear pants because I gotta flip one on each side, each
you
leg
can edit
side.
that out if you need to. I had to ask that though.
Oh my god!
No, but things are good. Today, I'm going full old man with it. I've been smoking a brisket. I just did. I'm doing a double smoked ham. That'll have a bourbon cherry honey glaze on it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm really excited for. But yeah, no, I'm being back in the Midwest in stride. Doing just kind of taking advantage of the things that we couldn't do in California.
Right.
But no, otherwise, yeah, things are good.
When you start sitting on your ball sack, Sean, that's when it has to really. I mean, that's when it.
Yeah, no. Well, SNL did a skit on that.
Yes.
Isn't there an SNL skit on that? That's hilarious.
Yes, it's classic. It's classic.
You watch the old term like "popping the dink bag" is the old phrase. So.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no. So far, so good. I haven't squashed him like a whoopee cushion yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Oh man, what a.
That's good news. That's good to hear.
Yeah,
you're not that old yet.
No. When Sean put on there that he had. I just texted him back. I said, "Welcome to the club." He's like, "What club?" I said, throwing your back out after you get up from a crowd. It's like every time that an old guy gets up, he has to make make that noise when you get up anyway. And now when you get up from taking, Oh,
V, I'm digging the facial thing you got going on there. I like that.
Thank you.
I like that scruff.
Yeah, you haven't. Yeah, this is just to prove to people this is my winter scruff. And
I like it.
Our youth pastor at church, he's like, well, when you do that, you got to use the it's like this balm or whatever, and you put on it and everything, and it kind of helps with the growth.
Yeah.
So
the beard balm, make it look smooth.
Yeah.
You got a comb for it yet?
Yes,
I
do. You go. I bought the comb for it. I've got the whole thing, and so my children hate it, but my wife loves it, so that's all that matters. So
I like it too, man. Keep it.
Yeah. So I guess we should start with the big news and go from there. As of Friday, our good buddy George Santos is no longer with us in the House of Representatives. He was expelled by a vote of, I just lost it, but it was there was only 100 people a little over 100 people who voted to keep him in the House, but he has also been. It looks like there's going to be charges that are going to be filed, ethics charges that are going to be filed against him. It's 311 to 114. 105 Republicans voting in favor of expulsion, and then there was only 4 Democrats who voted not to expel him. So, I mean,
Okay, so that's 105 out of how many Republicans are currently in the House? We got 200 and
well, there's 435 members, and they have 20 more members. They have a 21 majority lead. So do the math. That's a lot of math for me at this time of the day. But
you would think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of votes against him. Considering what he's being charged with and the evidence that's been brought forward, you would think it would be like more than 50% of the Republican Party and House that would be voting against him.
How are they? My thing is, how are there 105 or 100? I'm sorry, it was 107. How are there 107 Republicans who still believe that he was something worth saving?
That's what I'm getting at. That kind of blew my mind. I think, and looking at this case and seeing those numbers, I mean, I'm glad I'm hearing the numbers now, because when I originally read this, I had read that there was way more Republican support for him. So I'm kind of relieved to see at least 50% roughly are voting against him. But even then, I mean, it's a further black guy on the Republican Party. I don't think not so much for him specifically, but more so in the fact that you have 50% that still did not vote to expel him, given the circumstances and what was done. I don't see how you don't vote to expel him, given what they found in the hearing.
So here is the complete rundown. In October, prosecutors hit Santos with an additional 10 counts that accused him of conspiracy to commit offenses against the U.S., wire fraud, making false statements to the Federal Election Commission, falsifying records, aggravated identity theft, and access device fraud. That is also on top of 1 count of conspiracy to commit another offense against the United States, 2 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of making materially false statements to the Federal Election Commission, 2 counts of falsifying records submitted to obstruct the Federal Election Commission, 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, 1 count of access device fraud, 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Can maybe I'm wrong. I thought I had read that he had used campaign funds at like a strip club or some shit. Was that false, or was it something like that?
So Sean, or I don't know who it was. I thought so. Sean and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. So he has a 4,100. What'd you need? The Hermes, is that the name of that store, Sean? What was the name of that store?
Air Mace, you uncultured swine.
I'm sorry. I'm not.
H is silent.
I am not gay. I'm sorry. $4,127 at whatever that place is. Smaller purchases at OnlyFans.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yes.
Yep, that's what it was.
A makeup at Sephora. $6,000 at Ferragamo. $3,000 on Botox. $3,000 for an Airbnb, which all was at the Hamptons for the weekend.
Campaign funds. It's for campaign.
And then he made false statements like he was the grandson of a Holocaust survivor, graduate from Baruch College with a master's in MBA from New York University, went on to Citigroup, worked for Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, who both denied that he ever worked for him. He owned multiple properties, was the beneficiary of a family trust worth millions of dollars left by his mother, who passed years after the 9/11 terrorist attacks as a long-term health effect related to being one of the towers, which she wasn't even in the country at the time. And, So
with all that being said, I'd like to get back to what I kind of said before you kind of went through the list of like This was a kind of a black eye for the Republican Party, which has already kind of been on the decline given the whole Speaker of the House BS and all that stuff that went down. They had an opportunity here to had an overwhelming number of Republicans stand and say, hey, you know what? We do not stand for this in our party. This is a party that you can trust. This is a party for the people. Whatever they could have branded themselves in a better light by standing against this. But again, when you only have 50% of the party saying like, yeah, we want him removed, and you have like over 100 Republicans not voting against him, I think that's a really bad look to a party that's already got a bad look. I don't get it.
Sean, what's your take on that?
No, I'm 100% in the same boat as Travis. This is one of those things where it was like, regardless of what people say about like Trump with Malargo and with everything that we've kind of seen with on the Republican side of things, with some of just like the craziness that gets out of what is kind of happening behind the scenes. This guy, this dude, it wasn't like oh, they found out that he spends his money on OnlyFans and on vacations and things like this. It was no, he used campaign funds to look at buttholes. You use campaign money for things on OnlyFans. And so for me, I'm with Travis. The fact that it was like, it goes to show, because here's the thing. I will say that and I'm just being completely transparent. I think that, let's say if he was a Democrat, the Democrats would have done the same exact thing. There would have been some that would not have wanted to have him expelled. And I solely think that boils down. It just goes to show that, at least you said there was about 50 that voted for him to stay.
Yes.
It goes to show that there are 50 Republicans who genuinely do not give a shit about the American people and what the American, people want in a representative. It's the campaign fund thing to me, and we've known this. I mean, this guy has been a habitual liar since he was running. Like, it was, I don't know if like what it was, what the appeal for this guy, to the American people, because he out in New York, if I'm not mistaken,
right?
Correct?
He represents Long Island, right?
So it's just like, what else? What was the other option? And
how bad was it? Yeah.
Now it's really going to be, you would think, and maybe not, but because we saw this again. Who was the Missouri governor that was the former Navy SEAL? That Greitens. So I would. It's a very similar
Rhino
thing,
hunter,
where you had Greitens got in trouble for his personal misconduct. He was no longer was removed from being the governor, and you would think maybe like then it means, oh, then there might be this Democratic sway. No, that was not the case in Missouri. No. And I think that Jay Nixon, being the fucking goofball that he was, had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
But now you look to Long Island and that area of New York, and you go, well, what's next for them? What are they going to give the Democratic, the next Democratic candidate a chance, or what are the repercussions? And like Travis said, like, Republicans should have just ripped the Band-Aid off instead of trying to play this numbers game. They should have said, nope, we don't have time for that in our party. He's out. And then that way, in my head, that shows the American people, okay, they are serious about, making a difference and doing what's right. Because, we've seen so much recently of House committees and the Senate, all these different groups of doing what's good for them and not what's good for the people. And 50 Republicans really showed their true colors, in my opinion, with this vote.
Well, what's going to happen now, per the Constitution? So the governor of the state has, I believe it's 10 days from the date of his expulsion. So that's, what's that woman's name? Kathy Hochul, who's the governor of New York. She has 10 days to establish a special date for a new date for special election, and she now if it, and then from that, and then it would have to be held, let's see, 10 days to announce, and then 6 weeks then to have the election. So they have to have, they cannot go more than a quarter with unrepresented. Okay. Now, if it was a senator, the governor would would do a hand pick. But since it's a member of Long Island, and I just looked it up, it's Long Island's or New York's third district, which is like we said, is Long Island, and that's what she has, and so that's in that amount of time. Then they will have your candidates have a Democrats and Republicans then will have a chance to file, which really makes for a really short campaign. And I don't know if the Democrat from the last election will step up and say, "Hey, I want to, another." But from what I have here, it says Democrats and Republicans will each pick a candidate to go head to head in what's expected to be a hotly contested election with national implications. So
government shutdown, maybe.
God, yeah.
I don't think that would happen. But some numbers really quick. I just looked this up. And this was December 1st. I don't know if this was the final vote or not, but this article on December 1st, 112 House Republicans and 2 Democrats voted against expelling him. And notable names that were in favor of him, Representative Matt Gaetz and Clay Higgins, spoke in defense of him. And some Republicans argued, according to this article, that it sets a bad precedent, which that's exactly.
We've done it.
That's right.
We did it 20 years ago.
Is paying money to look at buttholes with campaign money not a bad precedent? What is a bad precedent?
What's a bad exactly?
Like maybe you know what, if he would have used funds for prostitutes like a real senator or a real House of Representatives, then
done.
He'd have been just fine.
He's good, yeah.
Would have been just fine.
Or
114 House members voted against expelling Santos.
So it wasn't. I had mine. I don't know why I had my numbers wrong then.
This was the first, so maybe that, I don't know if that was the final vote. It looked like the initial vote actually failed to expel him. The fact that it went to re-vote is just ridiculous. And man, I can't emphasize it enough. In my opinion, I think Republican Party just really missed the mark on this one.
Well, what does that tell you about Matt Gaetz? We already on this podcast already hate this guy, but but just for the record, Santos is the 6th House member in U.S. history to be expelled, and the first in more than 20 years. Representative James, I remember this guy. James Traficant was removed from office in 2002 after being convicted of 12 corruption-related felonies. So it's not a. I mean, it's like they're saying that it's a bad precedent. It's not a bad precedent if you've got a guy who's a dirtbag. That's your job as representatives to expel him. That's your job. So, I mean, I don't know if I want to say that this is civil war continuing with the House or with the Republicans within their branch or whatever, or within their party, but good night. I mean, the fact that
I don't know, man. I don't know. What a mess.
I want to say that he's an anomaly anyway, and that he's a gay Republican and he's a representative to Congress is like, and from New York. That's like the trifecta of oxymorons: gay, Republican, and New York. So I mean,
do you guys remember Milo Yiannopoulos? Does that name ring a bell?
No. Who was
so? Milo was a outspoken, very, very, very right-wing, kind of like social influencer. Never was really running for office, but he would go to campuses and would speak, and it was like a big deal whenever like people protested and tried to break into his speech at Berkeley. But I remember. So if you don't remember, this might ring a bell. He went on an episode of Rogan and talked about how the reason why he got quote unquote canceled and lost like book deals and lost all this other thing was because while he was on Rogan, he was talking about how when he was growing up in the Catholic Church, there was like a youth pastor that, he and him had like relations when he was like 13, 14, when Milo was, but he was like, but he was not the predator. I was the predator. And,
wow.
Yeah. And so that like kind of, because he was like, it was okay for me. Like, it wasn't a big deal. And, so Georgie here, what was like the embodiment of what Milo wanted to be. Like he was, successful. But both of them now have fallen from the pedestal because again, both kind of, habitual liars and well, yeah. So it was interesting. Milo was definitely, if you look him up, he was like big in the early like Trump days. Was always doing podcasts, doing shows, had a book deal that again all went kind of haywire.
Former editor of Breitbart News, so that tells you how left or
correct.
right wing.
Yes,
so how right wing he really was.
Exactly. He was nuzzled up with a lot of them. So. But yeah, no, George just reminds me of him, and kind of the downfall is, very similar, I feel like, in that aspect.
Well, that's I wonder now. So we are now we're 11 months away from the election. We are 4 months away from the first primaries. I think the Iowa primaries, let's see, first primaries. The first primary election is going to be March. Oh, okay. So looks like March 5th is going to be the first primary. So that's, I mean, God, enjoy Christmas while you can, because once the ball drops on New Year's Eve, we're going to be full balls to the wall to wall coverage of primary coverage, and it's going to be such.
I'm not looking forward to it at all.
It is. It's going to be such a mess with all of
it
these.
Is going to actually be funny though, because they're going to do the ball drop, and from New York they're going to send us to commercial break. They'll be right back, and then it's like, did you see those balls dropped? So did Joe Biden's daughter when he showered with her at the age of 13.
Yeah, the propaganda is already going to start.
This message has been bought and paid for by followers of JFK Jr. like
JFK Jr.
It's gonna be something. Right?
Well, and okay? So now here's my next question. I want to ask you guys. Do you guys think? I mean, we're getting to the point in the game where you're going to have to start filing paperwork, and there's still rumors hovering that Gavin Newsom, governor of California, is going to run against Joe. Is that still, Sean, as a former Californian, is that, I mean, what kind of vibe did you get from this guy? Is this something like, or is he going to wait until after Joe, or what do you think?
No, dude, Gavin Newsom, I mean, the problem with Gavin Newsom is, like, Joe Biden has dementia. Gavin Newsom runs his state like he has dementia. And so it's like kind of interesting to kind of see like how, like, why, I mean, we've said this. It's always like, I feel like this, like, truthfully, no joke, from since I kind of started like having an interest in politics, like, I don't care what anybody says. If you go back to like when McCain and Obama ran against one another, I would say most people could be like, hey, these are professional, viable candidates. And then as the years have gone by, it is crazy how substantially worse and worse and worse the candidates that we are getting. And I don't know if that's just because like I'm getting older, like I don't know if when Bush and John Kerry were running against each other, you were like, it's, I have two of the biggest idiots, or were you like, because I remember even though Kerry was a Democrat, I remember at least people were like,
they were giving him
willing to listen to what he had to say. Like, it's gotten to a point where I feel like nowadays we are just, it is quite literally a a a Powerball lottery of a bunch of fucking clowns, and we are left with whoever has the winning digits for whatever reason. It is quite literally crazy to me that it's like Gavin Newsom, who quite literally like, and I don't even really care for DeSantis. And regardless, of course, like all the time, it was, oh, DeSantis smoked him. Oh, Newsom smoked him. But like DeSantis was absolutely right and was like, you have proven that you can clean the shit out of San Francisco on a moment's notice. And you chose not to until a Chinese dictator came into your city. Like, what?
And he admitted
really
that too.
What we want, is that the leadership that we want for this country?
He admitted to that he admitted to doing that too. I mean,
yeah, like it laughed it off. Like, of course I cleaned it up because the fucking emperor of China's coming here. Like,
right.
Like, why? And it's things like that. And if you look at California, like even now, like there's so many things, like we've talked about it, like since we've been out, there's little things, that I'm like, I've seen that have happened that I'm so glad we're avoiding. But, little things, like we talk about how expensive everything is nowadays. Like California fast food workers now, starting, I think at the beginning of the year, are going to be making over $20 an hour in California. And it's like, I cannot wait to see what the cost of food is and how much longer can that state sustain that kind of lifestyle. I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Just a and to kind of follow up on the Biden thing, the reason why I bring this up, so and I was going to share this with you guys, and I'm sorry I didn't get this to you ahead of time, but the Gallup poll people, who I look to as an educator, I use these guys a lot. The latest Gallup poll, his approval rating overall, 59% disapprove of his opinion, of his approval rating, or his approval rating, or is that actually his approval ratings at 37%, 59% disapprove. Healthcare policy, 57% disapprove. The situation in Ukraine, 58% disapprove. The situation in the Middle East between the Israelis and Palestinians, 64% disapprove. Foreign affairs, 66% disapprove. And the economy, 67% disapprove. Okay?
One of the big topics right there.
And he's, whereas where you were to look at, if you look at these marks compared to where he was this time last year, he had a low approval rating, but he was at least in the high 40s, low 50s. Okay, and now, he's bottoming out. He's bottoming out, and where we were having this conversation, back in March, April, we were having, how is it going to be that Trump is even going to have a chance? And now you're looking at Biden's numbers just, cataclysmically just falling, and where the Democrats right now, I think you, this is crazy to say, but I think you could honestly stick Ron DeSantis in there and beat Joe Biden. I think you could put any of the Republican candidates in there and beat Joe Biden.
No, I'll be the first to admit I eat my words, because we, like you said, we talked about this a while ago. And when I said it, I said that with how divided the Republican Party is, I was like, I don't know who could beat Biden, because if Trump didn't get the nomination, he would obviously run third party. And then I feel like he would split the vote. Now, I don't think it matters as much.
No.
I don't think it matters as much now. Even that it did 6 months ago. Like, seeing people that I normally feel like don't speak up or speak out and try to influence and about politics, like legitimately people that I, would have never expected to kind of hear them say one thing or the other, are like, I am so sick and tired of this shit. I hate I can't buy things. I can't do things. And it, when fingers are pointed, regardless of how you feel about it, is to that current administration.
Well, and the other thing that, I mean, how out of touch, and we shared this week we shared a lot of posts about this week on X, formerly known as Twitter. Biden's making these comments on. Let me pull. You guys probably have it already pulled up, but on our group chat this week, when we brought this up, I forgot what day it was. Sean shared it yesterday. So this was the president's post. I don't know what day this post was on, Sean, but he's like, inflation was 0% last month, and our economy grew by more than 5% last quarter. Bidenomics. God, how ignorant do you have? Who's believing this stuff? Who's buying this stuff? Travis, what do you think?
That's a good question.
What's your...
Yeah, I don't buy it just because I've told you guys my situation here in Chicago and how the slowdown's affected me and my industry. I mean, I don't Bidenomics for tech and telecom is not working. I've heard rumors that supposedly the infrastructure bill that was passed a while ago was going to give us some work. I have yet to see that actually come reality. Cost of living is still killing people. I mean, fortunately, my home payment doesn't change, but like just going to the grocery store, things like that nature. I mean, it eats away. So out of touch. I mean, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, they're gonna lie to make it seem like everything's better than what it actually is. They're gonna paint this. I'm gonna use that Gilded Age reference again because they're gonna glitter. They're gonna put glitter on the shit and try to hide the shit, but at the end of the day, it's still shit with glitter on top of it.
I, you know, all the different quotes that are responding to this. I was just going down through some of these quotes. Who was this? I can't read the source for this, but since Biden has taken office, overall prices have risen 17.6%, food prices 20.9%, rent 18%, electricity 24.7%. Bidenomics. You know, and here's the thing. And I think I've said this to you guys before too, but I had a professor in college that says you can make statistics say whatever. You can spin statistics any way you want to. And I think in reference, there was a note below that the good folks at X are like the good folks at Facebook. It says the tweet is referring to the PCE index percent change from the preceding month. Inflation is normally assessed annually 12 months. However, the Fed's PCE goal is 2%, and it's currently at 3%. More commonly referenced inflation index is CPI, which shows the annual inflation is at 3.2%, which Sean and I talked about that last week. And for me to, and I kind of wanted to go readdress something you had asked earlier too, Sean. I mean, when I go back and I look at candidates from when you mentioned Bush and John Kerry. John Kerry, when he ran, he made talk about George Santos. He made some false claims as well. John McCain made that he was some of the stuff that he did while he was in Vietnam, and there was actually this it wasn't paid for by Bush, but it was this group of, I forgot what they were, what's called the 520 organization. They put a bunch of ads out on TV about how John Kerry, it was the gunboat, I forgot what their name was, but John Kerry did not serve with our unit. John Kerry didn't do this, and John Kerry didn't do that in Vietnam. But when you look at his political history, I mean, he was a senator, I believe, Massachusetts or Maryland. I can't remember which one he was the senator from. And then he served in Clinton's. He served some for Clinton. And then of course after he lost the election, then he was Obama's Secretary of State. So I mean, it's not like John Kerry's just the total epitome of dirtbagginess. George Bush. I think Republicans knew what they were going to get when they got George Bush. George Bush was. I mean, I don't want to say he was very he was a simpleton. I mean, if you watched the movie that came out a few years ago that was called was it called W or whatever it was called, and to me, I watched that, and it was I thought it was a fairly accurate portrayal of how I would have perceived George Bush to be behind the scenes of not totally 100% being on the even keel. But you also had you had Dick Cheney, who I thought was more of the president than what George Bush was. But even now,
Dick Cheney was the Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yes.
For
yes.
For Bush.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very. That's a great way of putting it, because Dick Cheney, I thought, did a lot of the footwork for George. He did a lot of pulling the strings. I think he was more of a. It was just. It was the fact that you could say he was the mover and the shaker. But George, I still didn't think of him as a bad person. And I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't think John Kerry was a bad person. But they were both semi in touch with reality. George Bush was a hero because of 9/11 and how he responded to 9/11. But then when when George Bush goes out and he appears on the deck of that aircraft carrier with that banner behind him that said "Mission Accomplished," yeah, no, not really, George. We really still have a problem. But I mean, even you go back even further. Then you had, like you said, you had Romney and Obama. You had McCain and Obama. I looked at those elections as even though the Republicans, may not have put forth the best candidates, they still put forth, I thought, viable candidates. But Obama was such a, his popularity was just through the roof that the Republicans didn't stand a chance. And so, as what you had then, I think in 2016, so you had this knee jerk. I don't know if I say knee jerk reaction, but when you look at the primaries at the beginning of that election, you think about that 2016, we had 17 candidates in the Republican Party who were vying for the nomination. At one point, we had 17 candidates. I know it's 17 candidates because I did a presentation for this for my class one time, and I had the slide with all 17 of these guys who were actually, they did a debate. If you guys can remember back that far, if you can remember that stage that they had that debate of all those podiums, and they tried to manage a debate with all those people up on the stage. And that just showed you how much of a, pardon my French, but a shit show that the 2016 election was and who they had to choose from. And so since that election, now you have all these factions come up within the Republican Party, and it's people are looking at each other like, okay, is anybody going to be able to beat Trump? So I mean, it's a very, very weird time right now for politics.
Yeah, this is going to be a weird election, and especially because we got Kennedy running too as an independent, throwing things off as well. Man, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
I wonder how many states
especially with the Trump lawsuit too, and yeah.
Well, so that's and talk about things that are going to happen after the new year. Okay, so the first trial in the trial in Georgia is set to start. I believe it's in February. The trial against him in New York is already going on, but that's against his corporation. That has nothing to do with January the 6th. And by the way, I thought it was quite hilarious. What was it? It wasn't last week, but it was the week before last when Donald Trump Jr. was testifying in that trial. There was only 4 people in the courtroom. Did you guys know about that?
No, I didn't.
When Trump was in there, it's a packed house, but they showed the artist. He's like from the court reporter or whatever. So there was only 4 people outside of the judge, the 2 attorneys, and the stenographer. There was 4 people in the courtroom when Donald Trump Jr. took the stand. I thought, wow.
Yeah, because they're there to see Trump, the man, the
Yeah,
myth, the legend,
yeah. They're not there to.
the superstar. His
Yeah,
son doesn't have that superstar power.
no, but anyway, yeah. So do you guys think that this is the fact that he is, are the indictments even a thing? I mean, are those going to even make a difference?
I don't know if they make a difference. No, I don't think it makes a difference because I think people already made up their minds whether they like Trump or not. I don't think that's necessarily going to change. I think people have kind of already made up their mind with that. I think the big factor is you got your swing voters. It's like I think most of your swing voters aren't going to vote Biden. I really think, forget what podcast I heard this from, and I have to agree with that take of I think a lot of people are looking at it's either I think Kennedy takes votes away from Trump, and it's either looking at either do I vote for Trump again or do I try Kennedy? And I think that could really throw a loop in things. I really I don't know if Trump pulls away with it, and if Gavin Newsom goes into it, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Democratic voters get behind him, even with the ridiculous track record that the guy has. Um, because some people will vote Democrat no matter what, just for the sake of they believe that a Democratic Party control is what's going to get things done in the U.S. Whether they like the candidate or not. If they see Gavin Newsom as someone who's a little more cognitive and not dementia dementia ridden, granted, we agree with his policies. No, I still so many people vote that way.
So,
Um,
and you mentioned RFK in the current polls that he's in right now, still have him. They still show him at 14%. You know.
yeah, his according it's weird because like obviously he's gonna say this too. He has internal polls that tell a different story.
Hmm.
Um, of course he's gonna say that, right?
Yeah.
And he's kind of stated that percentage, like any like the your major media sources when they report polls, that's kind of the numbers I've heard. But what's interesting is like when I talk to people, when I have conversations with people when RFK is brought up, most people listen to like Rogan or Lex Friedman or like these big podcasts that Kennedy's been on to for his campaign trail, which I think's been genius. Name another politician that's going to go on air for 3 hours unscripted and just lay it all out there.
Hmm.
There's not many. Um, most people that have heard that podcast have been like
Oh,
really
yeah. That's one of them. Yeah.
open to a Kennedy presidency. And I've heard mostly positive things, like just from coworkers, people I've asked about it, people I know that listen to those shows. I think I think he's got more popularity than 14%, if I'm being honest. I I don't think he pulls it off. And he's got my vote as of now. But even then, I don't think he runs away with it.
But it's
I
so.
really don't know who's going to be president. I thought for sure Trump was going to run away with it regardless. I really don't know anymore. I do think Gavin Newsom, if he throws his hat into it, is going to really mix things up, which scares the hell out of me. But at the same token, yeah,
So,
this is going to be a wild election year.
and with and the number with RFK. So one of the things that you have to remember, okay, so if you run as a candidate and you are not amongst the major party because they have so many registered, you have to have so many registered voters in the state to be able to have your name put on a ballot. Okay,
Mhm.
and so the way that some states have their election laws set up differently to where it's easier or it's harder to get yourself on a ballot. I believe from what I read earlier, I believe the latest you can uh, to file for a federal office, I think it's August. It's either August or September before the election, and certain states require you to have, if you're not amongst the major parties, then you have to get a certain percentage of signatures in each state to be able to put your name on the ballot. Some of the states that I was looking at here, it said, like, for example, in Kennedy would need 200,000 signatures in California, 145,000 in Florida, and more than 110,000 in Texas. However, in Tennessee, get this, in Tennessee, only 275 signatures are needed. So, you know, you look at that. The last independent candidate, and I'll just throw this at you. You guys, either one of you guys know who the last independent candidate was that was on all 50 states?
I'm going to guess Teddy Roosevelt.
No, there's one since then. 1992.
How recent? How recent?
1992.
Oh, not Al Gore. Yeah, I don't know.
Are you guys familiar with Ross Perot?
Yeah, I know the name.
Ross.
I know the name, but I don't. I only know the name because of Family Guy, so don't judge me.
Yeah. So Ross Perot was a Texas billionaire, and he's long since passed. But he was a Depression era guy. Grew up in the Depression, roughly same age as my father, and my dad was one of the people who voted for him and when you looked at him, he was probably a 5'4", 5'5", 5'6" guy, a little tiny guy, had the squeakiest, tiniest little voice you ever heard. You want to talk about Saturday Night Live, Travis? Saturday Night Live, Dana Carvey did a great Ross Perot, but Ross Perot, he played the spoiler role. He played the spoiler role in 88 and in 92. In 92, he took the votes away from George Bush that caused Bill Clinton to win. Because, the economy was, at the end of Reagan's presidency, it wasn't robust, but it wasn't weak. And then when George Bush came in office, he's like, read my lips, no new taxes. And then he had to put in this whole new round of taxes, and then Republicans were sick of what George Bush didn't do. We're talking about senior now. And it wasn't that Ross Perot was eccentric or he knew his stuff, but he was able to take enough of the vote away from the Republican Party the same way that I think RFK can, because, I see a lot of RFK. Ross Perot made a lot of sense, but there was some stuff that you were just like, okay, I can't go with this. In the same way that RFK is, and I think, RFK could have the same effect on a Republican election. But the thing is, I don't know how many states he's going to be able to get onto. That's going to be the catch. That's going to be the catch.
Yeah, that'll be a big catch and a big deciding factor on what chance he even has.
Yeah, I
think
so. But other than that, I don't think that it's going to be. I told my students this week, and I've shared it with you guys before. I'm literally terrified of this upcoming election. We all of us at one point or another have stipulated, do the Democrats even agree with putting Biden on stage with Trump in a debate? That would be. I
don't even know if the guy. I don't see the guy. Can they avoid the debates altogether with him?
Mm-mm. I don't think so. I don't know, but I don't think.
I don't know how they get around that.
Do they just have Kamala just stand in? Like, well,
that's not going to be much better.
No, don't. Yeah, that's the funny thing is, like, Joe Biden with dementia and Alzheimer's is still more coherent than Kamala Harris with notes. Like, it's fucking insane to me, actually.
Oh my gosh! What was one of the things that they were talking about? I about fell out of my chair the other day. They were talking. They were doing this spot on it's one of these things I follow on Snapchat. It's called Good Luck America. It's hosted by this guy who used to be a guy who was on CNN, and he left CNN because CNN didn't have. But he's not a right wing. He's not a left wing. But he goes through, all these little 30-second blurbs that politicians like, I'm so thankful for this and I'm so thankful for that. And it came to Kamala Harris. I just love and I'm so thankful for Venn diagrams.
He's
What? Venn diagrams? Wow. She's like, I just love Venn diagrams. And I had to hit back a couple times just to make sure I heard it right. And I was, wow. Venn diagrams. Thank you, Kamala, that you just, I'm sure the rest of the people in the room are just sitting there going like, what was that all about? So, yeah, Kamala.
She's got some clips out there where I just kind of shake my head, and even like go back to the last election with her debate with Pence. I mean, I thought she did god awful in that whole debate.
Well, that's why I said if Pence would have ran for the Republicans, I would have voted for the Republicans. Even though I'm not a huge fan, I would have voted for him before I voted for Trump. But now,
yeah, even then, he really lost me with the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Or what was the comment he made with like I don't know. He kind of lost me with that, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, let me put this.
Yeah, I don't know. Those debates are going to be hilarious when they come, though.
Let me put a hypothetical out there, and I want to get your guys' response to it. Okay. So I think we're in a foregone conclusion, even though we haven't had one primary yet, that Trump is going to get the nomination. What do you think about the possibility of a Candace Owen vice presidency?
I don't see it.
Why not?
Not yet. I don't see it yet. I don't think she has the influence or the popularity backing her yet to get it. I don't think her brand, I guess we call it, is there yet to have an influence enough for Republican voters to go with it. Potentially in the future. I don't see it for this election personally.
Sean,
I think I don't. Maybe not yet.
Sean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I'm in agreement with Travis. I don't think, I just don't think that it's gonna happen because there's like there's other candidates too that I think it's interesting for the Republican Party. Like I've seen some of the speculation for like who Trump's vice president could be, and one was wasn't Ben Carson. It was
that would be interesting. I don't think Ben Carson would do it though.
No, it was that sheriff.
From Maricopa County, Arizona. What would? I can't think of who. I know who you're talking about though.
It's no, that's not who it is. Hold on, give me a sec. I've seen him speak live in person, and I don't know why I'm losing my mind.
I know who you're speaking about. I can't think of. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's definitely a. So
no, they're saying Sheriff David Clark. That's not who I'm thinking of.
So this was. I just pulled this up. This actually came out yesterday. So this was out yesterday. Trump's VP ranking the candidates from most likely to the least. This is from The Hill. The South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. She's seen as the favorite to be Trump's next running mate. She said she's interested in the job. Then you have Tim Scott, Tim Scott is the senator, the African American senator from I believe it's South Carolina. You have
I know you're talking about,
yeah, Elsie. Then you have Elsie Stefanik. She's the new darling child, and she's actually a Republican who's actually in her 30s. I believe she's a representative from New York. They put down Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and I don't know. Sarah Sanders she could be a little bit polarizing, I think. But those, those would be the ones that I would say would be the, more than likely though. I'd say either Tim Scott or Kristi Noem. you know, one of the things that the American people are really, really, and I think we need to make it a point, and I'll say this as an administrative note, and I'll say that you guys would agree with me anyway on this, but I think one of the things that people have to do, and we have to push on this podcast, and thank you for all you folks who've been following along, but you need to encourage people, you need to encourage people to do their homework. When it comes to voting, let's not, just because of that letter that's next to their name in parentheses, whether it's R, D, or I, okay, or whatever it is, whatever party you're going to go with, do your homework. That would be my number one thing. Number two thing, don't let people sway you because of their relation to you. You know, my wife and I were having this discussion the other night. Sometimes my wife goes all day by being by herself, and stuff just builds up in her head, and then she has thoughts that she unloads on me. And we had this thing the other night where we were saying how ignorant it is, how people are swayed because they don't want to be the person who says, well, I voted for this person, and so therefore I'm the dumb guy or I'm the bad guy. Or if it's your, whether it's, well, this is the way my wife or my husband's going to vote. This is the way my mom or dad voted. This is the way grandma voted. This is the way my coworkers voted. In all honesty, folks, it's something that to me, that's something that you should keep personal. That's not something that you're going to say, hey, I'm going to share this with who I voted with whoever. That to me is something that you need to keep to yourself. So do your homework, keep it personal. Let's not advertise. Let's, make this about electing the right person. So.
Yes, I want to. I agree with maybe keep your voting choice personal, but whatever you're comfortable with. But I would encourage people to have open conversation about it too. Like the whole don't. I talked about that on the show before, but I would like to see more conversation of politics happening in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
Instead of just being quiet about it. So maybe keep who you voted for to yourself, sure, but with the research thing, have some discussions with people too.
Yes,
if you can.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, don't have
if you can.
Right. So
it's tough. It's tough. I get it, but
oh man, Sean, any closing words of wisdom for us before we?
None of wisdom. Probably the dumbest of all three of us here, so I just take it in stride. But no, I kind of you had a caveat, both what you said, what we've talked about, and this dates back to probably the first episode that we ever did, is there is no need for there to be such a divide, even if you have conflicting opinions on politics. It is okay to disagree, and if you can disagree and love thy neighbor and still just appreciate the fact that we are able to have a free election and we are able to, live the lives that we want to live, you have choices. We have a federal government that is there, and we have state governments that try, to give, the people of that demographic the best lives that they think that they can provide. So, we've said it from the jump, pay attention to your local elections. Don't let those just go under the bus. Too many times I know, for example, in Eolia, whoever wins, the congressman for that district might just be because they put more, picket signs in people's yards, right. And people's oh, I just recognize that name, but they have no idea what they stand for.
Right.
So that is one of the things that, we push, do your research, have the discussions, and at the end of the day, do what your heart and your gut tells you to do. And we are definitely, at where we are at now is the ticking up the slope before the roller coaster takes the dive. Yeah. We are at the clicking of the chain. We see all the shit around us, all the clowns, all the circus acts, all the other different wild rides that are here, and we are about to nosedive into what is the election season roller coaster.
Yes.
And buckle up. And we're glad that, our listeners, you guys are here, to the thousands that see us talk on TikTok, whether you like it or not. We're glad that you're viewing.
Yep.
And we can't wait to just keep it coming to you guys. And we'll definitely be pedal to the metal as we cross into election season with you. Absolutely. Yep. Thanks again.
Yep. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.